Hello, and welcome to the first in what will hopefully be a series of webinars focused on retail and retail technology. I'm Martin Schofield, and I'm the CEO of Retail247. My background is retail through and through, from a pure technology focus at Debenhams to running IT and Burberry retail across Europe, and then moving on to main board positions at Harvey Nichols, covering IT, logistics, and group retail operations. 5 years ago, we set up Retail247, our aim being to be the go-to specialist in retail project consultancy and a leading provider of key technology solutions. We focus our solution expertise on delivering key pillars of technology for retail. We have been delivering technology engines for product, stock, and customer, and our product platform Origin has already been used by a number of retailers. We have also worked on stock process for accuracy and the deployment of RFID technology, and we continue to build our capability in this area. Now, I'm a big believer that retail must deal with an inherently chaotic world, one where the customer effectively dictates technology adoption. Which social media channel or payment method is flavour of the month is often dictated by an effective marketing campaign and a trendy name. To survive in this world, retailers must strive to have a sound technology foundation, and of equal importance, they must acknowledge that change is a constant. They must make change a part of their technology DNA. They must embark on a journey to sustainable change. In today's webinar, we are lucky enough to hear from 3 retailers. We're going to hear their insights into the challenges retailers faced over the last 12 months. And we're going to see how they're embracing technology now and in the future. We will then hear from 2 of Retail247's technology partners and understand a little about their ethos and solutions. We will see how they can help with the journey to sustainable change. 2020 was a ridiculous year by any measure, a year where we all had change imposed on us, and one where we had to adopt to a new way of living, a new way of working, even a new way of existing. Hopefully this webinar will give you at least a little insight into how the retail industry is adapting. Now, as we go through the sessions, please submit any questions you might have via the chat function. I'll then pose them, or as many as I can, at the end of each session. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to our opening speaker. Please welcome Maryanne Fleming, the Head of Technology for Monsoon Accessorize. Maryanne, over to you.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm hoping I can share these slides with you. As Martin said, I'm the Head of Technology at Monsoon. I've been there for just over a year. But previously, I was at Arcadia. I was at Marks & Spencer in their BI team. And I was at Selfridges on the single view of stock program, and I know some Selfridges people are on this call as well, which is lovely. I think we're not a Retail247 customer at the moment, but Martin and I have talked a lot about data and about the control of the data, and so they've asked me to talk a little bit about my experience of it. I think one of the things we definitely know is that 2020. Had no precedent. So this idea that we look at the past to predict the future, it just has gone out of the window for us, because we couldn't see what was going to happen at all. I don't think any of us could have anticipated that face coverings would be our best seller this year. And they've been absolutely, the cash cow for us. Things like above the keyboard and below the keyboard dressing as well. Those have been, for Accessorize, fantastic. I mean, I'm not doing a very good job today, but that idea that we're all wearing our pajamas below the desk and earrings above is something we would never have thought would happen a year ago. So it's been an unprecedented year. It's one where we've had to think differently the whole time and use our data as assets to try and anticipate what's going to happen. I think when you look at people like I've got some examples here of like Amazon and Facebook, I'm not sure that you could necessarily say they use their data for good, because you know that if you talk vaguely about a home office, your Facebook feed's suddenly going to be full of ads for sheds and pods and things. But companies like Monzo, I think they are very data driven, and they give you really good insight into your spending, and you can say things like, oh, maybe I do spend too much at Pret-a-Manger. And companies like the World Health Organization and Médecins Sans Frontières, I did a data hack with them a few years ago. They use their data to anticipate where to send cholera medication when there's been an earthquake, because the data tells them where there'll be a ruptured water main. So there's some really amazing applications for these for data looking forward and allowing you to anticipate. But of course, as retailers, we tend to be really reactive, and we're not great. I mean, I know some of these here are retailers, but I think we have a bit of a tendency to respond to what's happening right now. So I think some of the things that we need, that we've put successfully into place in order to make sure that our data becomes reliable and that it is a genuine indicator of that it helps us provide proper predictive analytics, is first of all data ownership. When we first started replatforming Retech onto Oracle's MOM system at Selfridges, we did some data cleansing and some data health checks. And while everyone thought the data was probably okay, we actually found there was proliferation of certain things. Like we found something like 12 different spellings of the word fuchsia. So you can't analyze at that level when there's no consistency across it. So data ownership became a big part of what we had to do to say, you're the gatekeeper to this data, so that you decide whether or not that data is going to go in. And if you've already got a version of fuchsia, get people to use that, don't create yet another one. So this removing things like user-defined fields is part of that. And then there's a common understanding of what the data is telling us. Sales can mean all sorts of things. And certainly when you're in an omni-channel world, the fact that a customer put an order on doesn't mean that they've bought your product yet. So we had a lot of work to do about understanding what the data is actually telling us. And once we got that common understanding, another part was to put super users into it, to embed them in the business so that they could do their own analysis and not be reliant on the central IT function. The data is not owned by IT. It is definitely owned by the business. And we found some other examples where, for example, full price sell-through, that needs to be owned by buying and merchandising, not by IT, not by finance. We found examples where sell-through was over 100%, which would be lovely, but it can't happen. So that data ownership, that common understanding of what it means, gives you that basis of reliable data. And this was something we kept coming back to again and again, that keep it simple, have owners, have a common understanding. And with those things, you started to get this really solid base of data. This is all technology agnostic. This applies whether you're using Exasol or Snowflake, whether you're using SAP HANA. All of these things are absolutely key to getting this reliable data set. And then once you do, you start being able to feed in other data. And this is where it starts to get really exciting, because you can look at what other factors are out there, because that's where history does matter. Weather, if you can get weather information ahead of time, you can get the umbrellas to the front of the shop before it starts to rain. If you know about sporting events, and if you have the patterns of your customers buying during sporting events, Topshop, we always knew that there was a spike in online shopping during big football matches as the girlfriends went revenge shopping. Can we anticipate that? Could we target the women who are sitting shopping during a World Cup match? We've got Qatar 2022 coming up. We ought to be able to do something with that. Other events like the Queen's Jubilee coming up in 2022 as well. That one we're going to get an extra bank holiday. What can we do to anticipate that, to push sales through? The one we had no information about, so we didn't know what to do, was Brexit. And so because everything was so late and everything was last minute, we had to guess what we were going to do, and it would have been so much easier if we could have known what to do. So all these external sources start to enrich your data and start to support predictive analytics, which is when you can start to think ahead. So we know with the vaccine coming through that we're starting to get a glimmer of light at the end of the tunnel that I think we all desperately hope means that we're going to soon be back in a normal world. But we also know that normal is not going to return immediately. So again, we can do some anticipation of what it's going to be like. So Dr. Hannah Fry, who is a senior lecturer at UCL, and uses mathematics to predict human behaviour. She suggests that we as humans have a terrific need to get together in large groups, that we like being packed into dance halls and bars and that sort of thing, and that actually after the First World War and the 1918 pandemic, that led to the Roaring Twenties, where everyone was in dance halls and drinking and just having an amazing time. So we have to consider, knowing that from the past, is that what we're going to see again? And if it is, what an opportunity for party wear. We haven't shifted a single dress in the last year, but maybe we will now, because there should be that uplifting now and that kind of excitement about being get together. I think, though, there's also other things we should think about that could be opportunities for us, because we're not going to get the restrictions lifted immediately. It's going to be gradual. So we're already seeing in bridal a lift on brides' dresses. But I think that's because people are planning to have little weddings in the spring, because it will still probably be restricted to 15 people. But does that mean by the summer we're going to start seeing these really huge weddings? And we should start thinking about that external data coming in and telling us when the restrictions will be lifted, so we can start to think about mother of the bride and bridesmaids' dresses and things like that. I don't think we're ever all going to go back to the office as we were before, so that continuation of above the keyboard, below the keyboard dressing is probably something to consider. Things like tailoring, maybe we're only going to sell the suit jacket and not the skirt or trousers anymore, or in far fewer quantities. We've also, things like face coverings. I think there is if we'd known a year ago that we'd all be wearing face masks, I think we would have said, no, we wouldn't, we just don't do that. Because it was very much seen as sort of Japanese or Korean thing that they would wear masks in public. But I think the last few years, or the last year, has shown us that there's a courtesy to it as well, that if you're sneezing, if you've got germs, wear a face covering. And I think we might find that becomes normal for us as well. And to be honest, we've probably all bought so many now, especially fashion ones. I don't want to stop wearing them. Some of them are really lovely. And then there's customer sentiment around what we do ethically and sustainably with our products. So Selfridges, I think this is such a lovely idea, this idea of selling and buying pre-loved clothes, repairing what you already have and renting it. And again, data can help us. If we asked our customers the right questions about their sentiment on this, could the more middle market places like Monsoon perhaps exploit some of this? Because this is wonderful. You know, if you bought a wedding dress, it very rarely gets worn more than once. But could we maybe sell them on, recondition them and sell them on as pre-loved? It's all opportunities we should be considering, and that we should be gathering data around customer sentiment in order to be able to exploit that and market it the right way and go after people, so that we don't do the same old, we do something different, because this is a completely different world now. And we've got to adapt to it, and data can help us do that. So I think that's kind of all I've got, really. It's just this idea that we are suddenly in a different world, and we need to think about what does that mean for us, and how are we going to adapt our business. And data, solid, reliable, accurate data, is the start of us doing that and moving forward and seizing the opportunities that are ahead of us.
Excellent, thanks, Maryanne. Not seeing many questions coming through. Please fire some questions through if you have them. I'll ask one though to keep the post going. You said data's not owned by IT, which I agree with.
No.
Ish. But how do you manage consistency in a world of the dominant spreadsheet?
I think that's one of our absolutely biggest challenges, that there's shadow IT all over the place. And also we have some, you know, every company has some really clever people who've got a bit of Python knowledge, or have used an Access database and still use it really extensively. I don't think you'll ever stop that kind of shadow IT. And I think the ownership of the data almost requires us to give people the tools to do that with. But that central repository of data is, we in IT are the guardians of it, so that we would set the standards for the data structures, for how it's stored, its retention policy and purging policy, those sorts of things. and making sure that the business rules are adhered to, that the way the numbers are calculated, the latency is understood, those sort of things. So we become the guardians of the quality of it, but not of the data definition.
I agree with that, certainly. Cool. Well, no more questions coming through. What about home working is my last question. How have you found the whole working thing? As in, do you ever see Monsoon Accessorize going back to a full office environment?
No, I don't see how we can. I think there will be teams the creative teams particularly will need to. Photo studio will have to, where the product is the important thing, where the touch and feel, and especially for Monsoon, you know, our fabrics are so much part of what we're selling. The embroidery, the beading, the rich velvets, those kind of things. The buyers need to feel them. They need to be physically in touch with it. But I think for the IT teams, and quite possibly for the merchandising teams, I think remote working will be 3 to 4 days a week going forward. Saving office space, saving huge amounts of CO2, you know, our carbon footprints drop when we stay home. But I don't think we'll ever eliminate it, because there are times when we need to be together. I think collaborative working is the thing I've missed most this last year.
Yeah, I think everybody would agree with that. Last question, because you mentioned the fuchsia thing, 10 variants thereof. Have you fixed it?
There might be more.
Have you fixed it? Have you made it better? And how are you doing so?
I think we made some strides with it, yes. Did we fix it completely? No, but there are people on this call who would know better than me, actually, whether we finally fixed it, because I left the program before it was finished. But certainly I think the rule of not having user-defined fields for those kind of things is what will fix that. Let the data owner put those fields in, and when someone says, can I have a field saying fuchsia, they can say you already have it and it's correctly spelled.
Yeah, I think I'm a big believer that, you know, good systems shouldn't let people do stupid things, but so we have to.
Well, yeah.
Quite got there yet. Great. Thanks, Maryanne. I'll now pass over to Neil Holden, who's the Group IT Director for Halfords.
Indeed. Thanks, Martin. Very good, Maryanne. Thank you. Hard act to follow. Let me just share my screen. Let's see if this works. Hey. Right, here we go. You should see that. Put that into full screen mode. Right. Okay. So, hi everyone. I'm very happy to be here chatting to you. I'm going to take a few minutes just to talk about Halfords as a group, as some of you may not know everything that we do. A bit around our strategy. Clearly, I'm going to talk about what's happened over the last 12 months and a little bit longer, but also talk about the future, specifically for Halfords and generally for retail. I'm going to caveat some of this. I have nicked some of this from Retail Week, so I'm going to credit them with some of the content. Some brilliant content actually of an article they did on the Great Retail Reset. So I've nicked the title for one and a few of the images as well. But anyway, so I'm Neil Holden. I'm the Group IT Director. I've been with Halfords for, I can't remember now, it's over 3 years, somewhere over 3 years. And just as a brief reminder, for those of you that know, those of you that don't know, we are a larger group than just what you may think of Halfords in terms of being a bike shop. We have a number of different areas, distinctly into 4 areas that you can see at the bottom of the slide there. I'm not going to brag about Halfords, but quite a big reach, lots of different channels to market, lots of different customer touch points, quite a few garages, mobile expert vans, our traditional retail stores, and also Treads, which a lot of you may not know about, is our performance cycling business based in Swansea. So in 2018, we announced our strategy, which you can see here, to inspire and support a lifetime of motoring and cycling. We've been working very hard, I have to say, on this since then. 2020, although it was slightly interrupted, was no different in terms of a huge transformation year for us. I'll go into a bit of detail around that to bring you up to speed. Huge progress across the company to help us evolve into a consumer and B2B services focused business with a greater emphasis on motoring. Doesn't mean to say that we won't retain our cycling credentials, which we're very proud of. One of the key areas of focus has been in digital. We've made some significant progress to support the wider strategy with millions of additional investment in digital, but a bit more on this later. And in Q4 of FY20, so that's about a year ago, we launched a new web platform, transforming our digital customer experience by bringing all of our products and services together in one website for the very first time. I have to say our timing was impeccable. with a global pandemic and national lockdown just over the horizon. I'd like to say we knew that was happening, but clearly we did not. I do have to credit Retail Week in these bits, but as a large part of the market content was from them and their brilliant article. But nevertheless, here we are in 2021. The new year has definitely not got off to the start that anyone would have wanted. A new lockdown underway, months of restrictions loom. But as much as it seems like 2020's disasters is set to continue, there's definitely light at the end of the tunnel as the vaccine programme begins, with millions of people already receiving one of the 3 vaccines that are on offer. Clearly, I'm stating the obvious, but the industry and the world were turned upside down in 2020 as the COVID-19 pandemic erupted. And the aftershocks to lives and the economy are likely to be felt for years to come, which clearly has an effect on all of us in our day-to-day lives, but also retail as an industry. But as 2021 begins, a bounce back looks within grasp. But Retail Week say, and I have to agree, I don't think it will be shared equally among companies. So Bain and company partner and retail specialist Jonathan Rigger was quoted in Retail Week saying it's not going to apply consistently, and I wouldn't make the mistake of some positive bits of news for a general recovery or return to normal, and that some of the changes of the last 12 months are going to be here forever, as Maryanne briefly touched on. And some of the channel shift, particularly in how people work, is definitely here to stay. The national economy is not expected to return to the levels it reached before the health emergency, at least until late this year. That's the Office of Budget Responsibility's upside scenario. I should flip back actually briefly, which you can see in the top right hand corner there. Its central scenario envisages real GDP will recover at the end of 2022. However, after a year when many stores were deemed non-essential and shut for months at a time, retail sales, I'm pleased to say, are expected to begin ticking up later this year, even as other industries continue to suffer. And consumers seem to think the same. The latest GFA confidence data showed a 7-point leap, as you can see from the chart there in the bottom. As the COVID vaccine programme got underway in December. However, the start of the 3rd lockdown in England certainly may have derailed this. We'll have to wait and see. But even so, Morrison's chair, actually, Andy Higginson, was quoted recently pointing out in Retail Week that the big unknown is how different customer groups will react coming out the other side. And I have to say, I agree. General changes to behaviour aside, the pandemic has left Britain in a bit of a polarised society when it comes to money. Retail Week went on to quote economic forecaster CBR, and that they reported in December that side effects of the pandemic, such as less commuting, restrictions on hospitality and entertainment, meant that households were expected to save a whopping £197 billion, or £7,100 per household. But set against that is the large number of people who have also lost their jobs or been furloughed and whose income is consequently under big pressure. And it's that polarisation that's also evident in where people spend their money. So, for example, at Halfords, year to date, we're now seeing a 45.4% of our sales coming from our group digital website, which compares to 22.9% for the same period last year. And obviously that's gone through various peaks and troughs this year, going up to 80% at one point. Now that transition to digital has been accelerated by COVID, clearly, but we've consistently outperformed the market as well at Halfords. So, for example, last reported stats from IMRG showed the overall market at 39% up year-on-year online growth, but our growth has far exceeded that. So I'm pleased to say that growth has been driven by increased sessions, which were 64.3% up year-on-year. We've also seen stronger conversion at 37.5% up year-on-year, and AOV at plus 3.3. So we're providing, what that means really for us is we're providing more of a solution for our customer, encouraging the upsell, which is good. We've also broken records throughout the year, delivering over 300 million of online sales in week 37. We're now generating more margin than we did in sales in the whole of FY20. And something which clearly has only been achieved through strategic investment in technology, platforms, and our digital first proposition. So this is really the crunch point for us in terms of technology and what everything we need to do. So our vision is not only underpinned by data and technology, but actually influenced and driven by it in many areas. So I've grouped together the areas of strategic investment and focus into 4 key pieces, really. Group data and analytics that are fit for future technology, which clearly fits the topic of today in terms of sustainable growth and the journey to that, and addressing technical debt and customer and colleague tech foundations. And clearly I'm not going to have time to talk about all these, and you probably don't want to hear about all of them at the same time either. But just to highlight a few that are really important to us, which you may be interested in. Group data, a nice segue from Maryanne's talk a little while ago, but specifically facilitating things like loyalty, personalization, machine learning and AI. We've delivered lots of early use cases successfully, I'm pleased to say, and we're moving towards a vision which is to be a truly data-enabled business. I don't want to say truly data-driven business, because I think most would agree that we need the human interpretation and that sort of working side by side with the data and the technology, but then the interpretation and the next best action in terms of what a human would do. So that's how we're approaching that. RPA, I'm going to call out as a big one for us. We've already started in a number of areas, but as a traditional British heritage business of over 125 years of experience, you know, there are a lot of things that we could do by embracing some kind of robotics. So we've started that journey, and there's lots more to come in terms of that as well. Our customer and colleague apps and gateway, so that includes things like self-service and order management, and we're putting a huge focus on that now, embracing the trend of a more digitally enabled consumer world in retail. We're looking at apps, mobile technology, and we say gateway because we want to make sure that those things aren't just individual spot solutions, that we want a true gateway for customers and colleagues of how they interact with our brand at any touch point, and we think that's important. And technology innovation is a really big one for us, and this is towards the end now, Martin, if you're getting worried about time, but what we really truly want to do is create an innovation capability specifically mandated to incubate new ideas, proof of concepts, and to the point we can either prove quickly as well, either prove or disprove that the idea was something we want to take forwards. And if it's not, we can shelve it and maybe pick it up again for the future. So lots there, I realise, but some really key things for us to take us forwards. And it's fair to say we've got a huge amount to do to capitalise on the growth in demand for technology and the immediate demand that's there. And it would be really easy for us to just look at only in front of our nose and serve those immediate demands. But hopefully you can see that most of what we're doing isn't just serving those immediate needs. It's definitely trying to provide a platform for sustainable growth for the future. And that's all I've got really at the moment. Martin, back to you.
That's perfect, Neil. Thank you. Good to see you had a successful year. Questions? A couple coming through. 1 second. What was your bestseller during the lockdown period?
So our normal bestseller, and it was right up there, is the Carrera Vengeance bike. It's actually the best-selling bike in the UK, and it is exclusive to us, which we're very happy about. And so, I mean, all the way through lockdown, I don't know, but that wasn't the bestseller through the peak periods, Black Friday and Christmas.
You had a bit of a surge on scooters as well, didn't you?
Yeah, so it was the Xiaomi, I'm going to forget the model name, but the Xiaomi Pro.
All those small spaces of private space that we can use them in.
Yes, well, there's a big debate at the moment. We are lobbying government hard about allowing electric scooters, you know, the same as cycles in cycle paths and in designated areas. At the moment, only rented electric scooters are allowed, but the government are committing to review that ahead of time, because clearly people would want to use public transport more now than ever, and will continue to do so. We believe electric scooters have got a big place to play in that space.
Thanks. There's questions flooding through now. I'll do a few more. Maryanne, you can ask questions earlier. How have you made the business case for addressing technical debt?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I'm sure I'm not on my own in terms of retailers who have got quite a large amount of legacy and technical debt. I was just on the phone to the CIO of Dixon's earlier, actually, and we were talking about similar things. So it's difficult to make the case for that, very difficult. And what we've had to do is identify where we have quite an aggressive strategy and it's very digitally orientated. We've had to clearly articulate and identify where that strategy cannot be achieved through either legacy or technical debt or anything like that. So WMS, for example, is very old for us. We've got an aging SAP estate. We've got lots of point-to-point integrations we want to eradicate. And we've had to be very specific about those and what it would mean if we can't deliver parts of the strategy because of those, and then build an investment case from there.
Cool. Kevin Breeze. In many cases, we have all seen a change, whether that's cycling, gardening, home improvements, etc. What do you think will happen when normality returns, when all these fads fall away? And actually, I had a similar question. If you're seeing that the online has surged over the last year, do you think that will have a fundamental shift in the role of your store estate?
Yes, I didn't catch the end of the first question. Was it?
Yeah, basically, when all these fads have fallen away, what do you think will happen? Are they? I suppose is the question.
Okay, yeah, I mean, we've done quite a lot of work in terms of consumer trends and which ones we think are here to stay and which ones aren't. And clearly, we've had some tailwinds from things like cycling and lots of our product areas actually, metal storage, bike racks, roof boxes, staycation, touring type products. And we honestly think that a lot of that is here to stay. We are anticipating a drop off of some kind, but we think the health and fitness and safety themes that are very prominent now will not change. We think people will remain concerned about those going forwards, and clearly we are here to help from that point of view. Sorry, the second question I forgot.
It was just my question adding into that one. Really, it was about whether you see the role of the stores changing. If that change remains consistent, what are the stores going to be?
Yeah, well, I think every retailer at the moment is looking at their portfolios and the purpose. I mean, I think the question, what's the point of the store before the pandemic, was already there. I think this has heightened that discussion. And I think there's lots of retailers now who are looking at more of an experiential service that they want to provide to people. We work with Pets at Home a lot. I think they've done a great job at that in terms of their stores and what they do in terms of grooming services and other types of services that they can have physically present within a store. Certainly something that we're looking at as well, and I know others are.
Great. A couple of questions from James Wheeler. Has the pandemic changed your priorities on your digital strategy? Or was it just a question of catching up?
Yes. Hello, James. Yes, it has. So, and I talked a little bit about this in the Retail Week discussion not long ago, but so we're still very fixed on our strategy and our vision, and we know where we want to go in terms of being a super specialist service or orientated business. So anything that we already had in our plan, we are continuing with that. Clearly, there's deviations within some of those areas which may provide and yield some immediate benefit. I think the trick for us and what we're quite careful about is that it doesn't deviate us too far away from our ultimate vision of what we're trying to aim to. So some things we have had to make a very difficult decision on while it might be beneficial for the short term to do that, but it's kind of contradictory to where we want to go ultimately. And it fits with your theme of today, actually, about the journey to sustainable growth. I think it's an important point.
Right. A follow-up from James. Regarding the data project, given the numerous data sources and opportunities in the business, how do you prioritize and where to start with such a big project? Actually, sorry, Neil, can you just stop sharing as well, so we'll go big screen?
Yes, I'll stop sharing.
That's good.
How do we prioritize? That's a good question as well. So we so we gathered in all of our use cases that we had. Some of them were pretty large, some of them were a bit more digestible, should we say. And then we looked at some really early use cases that could give us a quick return to prove the concepts and prove the value of the platform, because it's a significant investment for us. And then we prioritised from there. We've also working with a small agency called Red Kite, who I highly recommend, are very good. They helped us in terms of that data science capability that we don't quite have at the moment, and have done a great job with us. We're now building out that capability ourselves. and we really see data as a strategic asset for us. So yes, it is tricky. If you try and boil the ocean and go after too much, then you won't prove any value very quickly. People will probably get bored and waiting for results to come through. So the trick for us was to pick the things that give us immediate value, but were big enough to really turn the dial.
Great. Quick one from Kevin O'Brien. Does Halfords have international ambitions? If so, will it be digital first?
We have no plans at the moment to look at anything international, but if we did, they would definitely be digital first. But I would say that as the group IT director, I suppose.
Yeah. So the remote working question again, has that impacted you and the team? Has that worked well for you? That's from Meg Darragh.
Yes, in a word, yeah. We have really embraced it, and I'm pleased to say that as a technology function, we've sort of set the bar for how we can operate, and it also it's actually broadened our horizons in terms of where we recruit from. Our main office is in the south of Birmingham, and it's hardly the digital hub of the UK. But we've now got people working for us across the world that we maybe wouldn't have considered before. So there is, more benefits to it from that. We had guys working out in Canada, in India, in Sweden, Italy, and you're able to do that if you collaborate online and not being physically in the same place. However, I'm going to caveat it slightly that you do miss the interactions and the physical kind of whiteboarding scenarios and that energy that you get in a room from that. So similar to Maryanne, I doubt we will go back to a full office environment, but I know there are lots of people that do miss it. I am one of them as well.
Yeah, thanks. And last question in the interest of time from Alan Norris. Can you envisage a time when retailers do become data-driven and take direct actions based upon the insights ML and AI glean from the data? This is fast becoming a real thing in the business sectors, so why not retail? I think I'd chip into that actually, because retail has questionable foundations in place currently, and we've got to get our basic data right before we can do these more advanced things. My answer to that question, but Neil?
Yeah, I think I'd agree. It depends what kind of business you are as well. We're quite careful that even in our RPA efforts, we've not gone full kind of bot implementation, because we know a lot of our customers want to speak to us, and they need that interaction, especially from a service and a super specialist perspective. If we're going to be a market leader in everything that we do, I'm not sure the full automation route would probably work for us, but then that's us, and there are large parts of our organization where we could do that, and we are, but going fully all in, I'm not sure would work for us.
Right. Actually, I've got one more question in mind. Why are we out of stock of bikes so quickly as well? And more importantly, the serious side of that question is, can technology do anything about that expected demand?
It can. I'm not sure it would have helped in the scenarios that we've had, but I have to say, we've got lots of bikes coming back in, and we're well ahead of the market in terms of cycling availability. And a lot of the issues are external to even the UK market, with Far East shipments. China actually ran out of shipping containers entirely. It's never happened before. I don't think they predicted that either. Maybe they should have a look at some machine learning, see if they can help with that.
Perfect. Thank you, Neil. That's great. Yeah, perfect. On to Heather Wood now, the Finance Director of L.K.Bennett, who's going to give us the finance view on the world.
Hi, thanks, Martin. I'm attempting to share my screen. Okay, is that up? Can everyone see it? Fantastic.
Perfect. Thanks, Heather.
Brilliant, thank you. Okay, so I'm taking a slightly different route, not being a technology background, obviously finance background for me. And I thought what I would start with is actually looking at the journey from a decade or so ago up until now, and the impact of that from a financial and operations perspective. So last year, as we know, was the worst year for a number of industries for a very, very long time. And I don't need to explain the impact of the pandemic to anyone here, I'm sure. I have noted a few key facts there on the left. But as we do know, bricks and mortar retail has been suffering for a number of years. Whilst there were more administrations last year than there have been for a long time, there's also been a long list behind that, and L.K.Bennett obviously was one of them in 2019. So most people on this call will have probably been pushing their companies to move forward faster with digital and tech. There is a question, therefore, is this just the inevitable, and should we, as a retailing, been readier? And if we should have been, why weren't we? There are some small positives that have come from the pandemic last year, maybe silver lining to some very big black clouds, unfortunately. But I have noted those on the right in the hope that we can look at those and see that there are things that we can do and things that we can capitalize on now as businesses in order to move us all forward. The speed at which previously technology adverse companies and consumers are now moving towards this area in a way they just never have before. There is a question of then again of are we moving fast enough, and will we be able to capitalize on this mindset in case it does change again? I think people have already mentioned on this call that people are talking already about a surge back to bricks and mortar. People want to go out, people want to shop again. We need to make sure that apologies for the doorbell, this is the wonders of working from home in the answer to the question that will no doubt come. But we do need to consider whether or not that there'll be enough to keep us all, to get us there fast enough and to keep moving us all forward. So while I completely agree with Maryanne, that's completely right, that the past shouldn't dictate the future, but it can be helpful to review the past, to understand the present and how to avoid making the same mistakes again. So one of the things obviously to take into consideration here is obviously the fact that there was the crash in 2008. Retail's never really recovered in the same way. And I think the pandemic has really proven that we will never go back to what was there before. There has been some decisions by various retail companies, and whether or not we think they're correct, again, I'm sure that most people here have been in companies where we've had this situation where there's been priority of the shiny thing over the operations. Then we end up with various other things where we end up with houses built on foundations made out of sand, and that's a hard realization to take on, that we really do not have the core functionality to take on some of this tech that exists. I think even Neil at the end there, they've done some amazing things at Halfords, absolutely amazing, but at the same time there's still operational basics that aren't quite right, that we all need to look at and take a realistic view of whether or not we can get there quickly enough and what we need to do to get there. It's not all doom and gloom, so not to be the most miserable accountant, obviously, as I know that I'm sure I'm coming across as. If we focus on the basics and consider affordable investment with key ROI, whether that's financial or not, we can move to improve things quickly. I've jotted down what my consideration of the basics is here. And I will use some examples that we have put in to L.K.Bennett that have made significant increases quite quickly. So one of them being the customer journey. A good example of this is last year we moved to add-in checkout as opposed to the old system that we had. That meant that checkout drop-off, where customers are not happy and therefore dropped by 50% almost overnight just by changing that. That obviously improves the customer journey, improves conversion, and has meant a big difference to us. So there are small things that you can do. It wasn't an expensive project to run, and has meant that we've obviously pulled those customers through and given them a better experience so they can come back again. Stock placement, making sure stock's in the right place, but also making sure stock information is in the right place. Again, with the data, we're actually using Retail247 with our PIM management to make sure the concessions have the right data. We have had issues previously as an old company of not having the right information at the right place at the right time, meaning that we don't, we miss out on sales, we miss out on information. We also give poorer experience to our customers. Fulfillment, so we've moved to a carrier hub, which gives better options to customers. They now can have next day delivery, faster delivery. That's something that we will improve on as we go, but that is something that we've done. And again, with returns, moved to an online return portal. That's reduced manual work, save money, and also can control return dates. There is often a case where customers also return far outside, I'm not talking a couple of days, but far outside the returns window, which obviously impacts impacts cash, and is something that we needed to get control of. So that's been very helpful for us. And then with relevance, one of the big things that we've moved as what e-commerce have moved towards is much more CEO optimization, which has massively helped bring out the brand and make sure that customers can see us as and when they need to. So that's been some small things we've done. We've got a long list of things that we need to improve at L.K.Bennett, but we have been moving as quickly as we can with some faster impacting pieces. Following on from that, those are obviously the basics that we've been doing now to improve the present. And then obviously the whole conversation here that we're here to do today is around the future of tech and what we can do and how we can improve those things. And as I said, there are some amazing things out there. The tech functionality, as you'll hear later on today, is absolutely outstanding. A lot of the time I have conversations with Martin, and he'll tell me about something amazing that they're doing at Retail247, and I'll look at them and go, it's on the list, we just need to get there first, because we do have operational pieces that we need to do. And the reality is that with the current climate, we've been, companies have been restrained by lack of investment for a long time, and now have restrained cash. Obviously, there are some companies that are doing brilliantly, and that's really, really great news. But a lot of brands and a lot of companies will be suffering a very restrictive cash flow. So there is a huge piece around, yes, there are some fantastic pieces of tech, but what will benefit the business quickly? What will bring cash in the door? What will repay itself fast? And then, of course, from that, we need to look at our journey. What's our roadmap to get to the future, to be able to do these wonderful things and to get to the exciting part. These are the pieces that we look at as a business, and the things that we have been using to be able to pull together a sensible plan in order to plan out the next 3 years. We've got a 3-year plan on CapEx and what we want to be able to achieve. It's not all tech, although a lot of it is. Some of it, a big chunk of it, is operational, to make sure that we can achieve the right, as Maryanne talked about, data is absolutely key. We definitely need some improvements in our data management, but we're working through this as quickly as possible. We're moving to automate as much as possible, remove manual work, make sure, Maryanne has I did laugh to myself when she mentioned the word fuchsia. If I have to see different versions of the word beige, I will have the same impact again. And it's something that we've done very similar in terms of cleaning up data, making sure that we're in the core places, removing old information that is no longer relevant, as something that can massively slow down systems and really is quite pointless. We have been trying to take 2-3 big issues at a time, and even smaller issues. We just really focus on those. What can we do to improve those quickly? Focusing on 2 or 3 as opposed to a massive project, Neil sort of touched on this as well, means that people can see the end and see a successful project in. So you can pick something up, and over a case of 2, 3, 4 months, you can really run it through. People stay interested and stay engaged. People still take on responsibility. In that case, then it isn't owned by IT, it is owned by the business, and people can see it through to the end and feel real success when they have that impact. That's really helpful to make sure that you don't focus on too much at once, because that's just impossible for anybody to keep their interest, really. And I think one of the main things for me is the worst term that I ever hear is, that's the way we've always done it. That might be the way you've always done it. It's not the way we need to do it now. And even something that I might have put in place 18 months ago, is that the right thing now? Maybe not. Let's keep reviewing. Let's keep challenging ourselves. Let's keep going back. Some of that is obviously around tech. So you might have put something technologically brilliant in 18 months, 2 years ago. Hopefully, if you thought it out carefully, it won't have disappeared. But things change all the time. The pandemic has shown us that. So 18 months ago, we might have done a project that sounded really, really spot on at the time. And then 3 months later, the world pretty much stopped turning. Is it the most sensible thing that we spent money on then? Maybe not. We've put new tills through our stores. It's really helped the customer journey in store, the speed at which they can get their till transactions done, the information they can find, being able to order stock online easier. All those things are absolutely fantastic. We managed to buy those tills in January 2020 to roll them out into stores in March. Was it the best timing? No. They are fantastic, and when they did finally go in after the first lockdown, they have made a big difference for us, and hopefully when stores do open up, it will again. But so you just need to make sure that you can be flexible. That's the other thing as well, is make sure you can be really flexible to pick up projects and put them down again fast as possible. We had a big CapEx plan sort of around September last year. We reopened and had great plans. We reopened really strongly. It was very exciting for us with the Christmas planning. People were getting excited about Christmas. Party wear was moving out of the door, although slowly. And conversations with customers, which for us is key, was that people were, they were coming in to look at what they were going to get, assuming the Christmas parties were going to open, and you could feel the excitement building up. And of course, the following lockdowns has really put paid to that, which means that our cash flow we've had to review. Let's rethink what things can pay back quickly. Let's do the things that will have a quicker impact, all these things. And I think the final thing that's quite important is when we're looking at capital expenditure, it's always about balancing it with the brand and with marketing as well. So it's not just about tech, and whilst the tech is fantastic, it is about the brand as a whole for us, making sure that the tech that we do fits well with us. A lot of the technology out there is unbelievably exciting, but it just isn't quite right. So there is a case of just make sure you assess that and make sure that it fits in with us. So that is my piece.
Excellent, thank you, Heather. I'll pick up on that technology spend question for a second. Have you found it hard to justify technology at a board level?
No, we've not actually found it hard to justify technology. Thankfully, we've got a really positive CEO and investor who are really key about the future of digital. They understand that very, very well. We've got a really great team who are all very supportive. It's absolutely not a case of having to fight to do digital projects. It's actually more of a case of discussing which one we have to do first.
And I guess just following from that, have you seen that become easier over the last 12 months or harder, as in, do people realise technology, is an option for taking us forward?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it was already a strong thing for us, and we had a new digital director come in a year ago who came in and with some really great ideas, and we knew that there were lots of things we wanted to do, some of which we did manage to achieve. And so that was already, a key driver for us, and I'm sure most companies did. We were forecasting to move towards the 50% mark, which I think a lot of people do. That's going to speed up for us for sure. So there has been definitely a shift in spend planning and actual spend. So no, it's not an issue, but yes, it has got faster.
Perfect, thank you. A couple of questions from the audience. Social selling. How do you, this is from Kevin Breeze, how do you see the increase in social selling by internal teams, influence, etc.? How do you see that as a key opportunity in fashion?
We definitely have seen that increase heavily. It has been more so over the last year. We have really taken hold of social selling and really pushed further with Instagram, especially. So we've taken on over the last 12 months, really, we've taken on much different influencers, people who are more around our brand. So Rebecca is our main investor. She came in obviously in April 2019 following the administration of the old company. Her background is fully marketing, and you can really feel that over the last 2 or 3 campaigns where she's pushed that forward. So we have some really good foundations now to build that marketing piece from. She's got some great deal of experience, so we're really moving forward with that. It's going to be really key, I think, for most fashion brands out there. And I know that there's a lot of new technology around social selling, which I'm not going to pretend that I know lots about, but I will say that for us it's been very successful and continues to grow as one of our key areas.
Cool, thank you. Short question, but could be a long answer here from Meg again. How do you ensure customers are key? We do a lot of customer data collection. Actually, I'll be honest with you, one of the main areas to talk to customers is actually in our stores. I hate to use the word omnichannel. I know it was the buzzword from a few years ago, but I'm gonna. Most of our customers cross over both quite easily. We don't actually have obviously there's going to be some customers that only ever shop digital. Most of those for us, not for everybody, are really relevant sale customers. And there are some store customers that only really shop in the stores. However, we most customers cross. So we have lots of conversations with our customers. We have a large quantity of information that comes back and forth. We do regular reviews of customers. One of the things that we are working on that we have, that is new for us and we are getting on is to talk to people who aren't our customers that we want. So we did a piece that, obviously we've done a large piece around the brand, around where we want to be, what we want that to look like, who are our core customers and who are the customers that we think should be our core customers.
And we now do lots of stuff. We try and do as many customer reviews as we can with people in that area and get the information as much as we, you know, as detailed as we can, to use that data to help influence what we do.
Great, thank you. Last one, I think. What are the main platforms that the brand is utilising in terms of marketing? So I guess that's not necessarily technology, it's just you know, platforms that you present yourselves on.
I think we use the main ones that most people use. We obviously the SEOs are on all the search engines, Google and everything else. We're on the Instagram, Facebook, marketing. Yeah, we're on the main platforms. I think the marketing team have some plans in over the next few years to trial new platforms. But again, that sort of requires some investment that we are yet to make, if I'm brutally honest. Perfect.
Great. Thank you. That's one last minute question to everybody from Boris. To all panelists today, so I'll ask this a few times. Once we come out of lockdown and the world returns to normality, how do you see the rebounds in channels to market? Stay broadly the same, significantly withdraw from the high street, shift investment online, etc. So that's quite a big question as well. As soon as you're on.
I think that the world has definitely shifted towards digital. I think for a short period, people will return to the high street quite enthusiastically because we miss it. Let's be honest. You know, one of the conversations I know that people have asked is about the remote working, which we'll touch on in this answer, if that's okay. We've actually closed our head office entirely. We have some office space above one of our stores, and we will probably make use of things like WeWorks and the other temporary office space. But in general, we have moved to remote working 100%, unless it's specifically around product. And we all miss the office. You know, on my teams on a daily basis, miss the office, we miss people, and we miss being in spaces where other people are. And I think people will still return to the high street. People will want to go back. The increase that we have seen, and I think has been pretty standard across the board, has been around local shops. So the shopping centres, obviously, as we all know, have suffered quite badly, but people have really enjoyed, and conversations now, you know, I actually went into my local shopping centre when everything was shut to go and try and visit the bank that lied and was shut. But you know, we did go in there, and there were so many people still in the shopping centres because people just miss other people. So I do think retail still, you know, bricks and mortar retail still has a place, but the move to digital has been coming for years. It's not new, and I think that will just continue.
Great, thank you. Perfect, thanks, Heather. Heather was the last of our retail speakers. I'm now going to introduce the first of our technology partner speakers. So please welcome Ross Gillanders. He's the business development specialist at Visenze. Ross.
Fantastic. Hello, everyone. Can you see my screen okay? Excellent. Thumbs up. So hello, everyone, and a pleasure to speak with you about the future of retail and computer vision. So when we're talking about computer vision, what we really need to focus on, I think, is vision. Vision is the main word there, because we are very visual animals. As we sit here today, we're all processing about 1,000 images per second, and we process images about 60,000 times faster than text. So in that environment where we are very visual animals, what we've done is we've used AI technology to build algorithms which mimic the brain. So we build algorithms that recognize images very accurately, but at scale. In other words, doing what the brain does, but much faster and at much greater scale than the brain could ever achieve. And we've been able to, over the last 8 years, you know, expand hugely. And the last year, you know, although it's been very tumultuous and very disruptive, you know, Heather spoke there about the kind of the 5 to 10 year acceleration over a period of a year. Certainly from our perspective, it's been positive in terms of the greater investment and greater attention to e-commerce and to all things digital. So we've 7 offices around the world, and we work with lots of different retailers. As some of them were mentioned there, you've H&M and Adidas, ASOS, Mango, Rakuten, Gucci, Burberry. So lots of different retailers. And what we do is we use our technology. We use the fact that we recognize images at scale to do different things, to solve challenges that these retailers have every single day. And unfortunately, I suppose NDAs, but also time probably prevents me from going into all the different use cases that we engage in with these retailers around the world. What I wanted to do today is just maybe touch on a couple of those use cases, just explore some of the areas in which computer vision is being used today, and how it may be used in the future. So a common customer problem that we see, and I'm sure lots of the retailers on this call see as well, is customers not being able to find the product that they want to purchase. So they know what they want. Sometimes the retailer even has that product, but being able to find that product is very difficult. So we've got customer panels that we've created in the UK and in the US, and this is a problem that's perennial across kind of all retailers and all customers. So one of the ways to solve this problem is visual search. So letting customers search with pictures. So it could be a picture of something they see around them. It could be something in a magazine. Often, especially in fashion, it tends to be an image from an influencer or from a famous person. And this visual search really is a great product discoverability tool and helps customers find what it is that they want. And visual search, the usage of visual search is being driven very much by younger customers. So according to MarketWatch, 62% of millennials and Generation Z shoppers want visual search more than they want any other new technology. And the big tech companies are very much capitalizing on this. So here you see screen grab from Pinterest. So Pinterest Lens was launched in 2017 and updated in 2019, of course, as part of the kind of Pinterest move towards direct shopping. But Pinterest Lens effectively is so popular that Pinterest users now, roughly 80% of their shopping journeys now start with visual search. Last month, Pinterest reported that on a monthly basis, there are 600 million visual searches last month on Pinterest. So really going from strength to strength and very much normalizing visual search and making visual search something that particularly younger shoppers are increasingly expecting. Google are also very much a part of this as well, part of this trend. They launched Google Lens initially on their Google Pixel phone in 2017, but have expanded this to pretty much all Android devices since then. They've also done a lot of work, not just with visual search, but with text processing, with natural language processing as well, so that you can take photos of menus, for example, and extract information from that. And not to be outdone, then Amazon, a little bit later to the party, but Amazon launched Style Snap in June 2019. Google is a kind of a broader, Google Lens is broader. Amazon Style Snap is much more narrow and focused on their fashion range. Launched, as I say, in June 2019, rolled out to the UK then later on that year in October 2019. They haven't published any results how popular Style Snap is. We've heard kind of unofficially that it's popular, and we know that they've had to do a lot of work with influencers because a lot of influencers on their channel were concerned because a lot of images they were putting up, they were concerned they weren't getting credit for those sales. So that maybe speaks to some of the value of Style Snap. So visual search is one use of computer vision. And certainly the big tech companies are driving that hugely, and a lot of retailers as well. But computer vision can be used in lots of other ways as well. And I wanted to very quickly just pull out 3 other examples of how computer vision is used in retail and in other businesses as well. So the first one is a global sportswear brand that I'm not unfortunately allowed to mention by name, but they are very much a household name. And we've done a lot of stuff with this company, particularly around visual search and visually similar recommendations. But what we've also done with them is functionality in their stores. So what we've done is put our technology into their app so that when you go into one of their stores, Beacon technology recognizes you've gone into a store. It opens the app. It allows you to go in and scan the shoes on the wall. You can get information about the shoes in terms of availability, stock levels, size, and this is functionality that's now in about 250 of their stores globally, and there's plans to roll it out to 2,000 stores by the end of the year. So, you know, some people might look at this and say, well, it's a bit gimmicky, you know, is it just something that, you know, doesn't really have any use? But it's very popular, particularly with younger shoppers, or else it wouldn't be getting rolled out. It also captures customers' intent. So if somebody looks at something but doesn't buy it, that information is captured and those customers can be communicated with afterwards. Another use of computer vision I wanted to talk about is with a partner of ours called Zalora, who style themselves really much as the ASOS of Southeast Asia. And we've done visual search with them. We've also done different recommendations, so similar recommendations, but also complementary recommendations, where we're bringing back products that you can't see, that aren't visually similar to what you can see, but that complement what you can see. So those different kind of recommendations have had a really positive impact on Zalora's average order value and also their conversion rates as well. And the third example I wanted to talk about is Retail247, our hosts today. There's been a lot of talk from a lot of the retailers about data. And obviously, you know, getting data is very important, and getting good metadata, product metadata, to be able to enact an effective SEO or text search strategy. So being able to get that product metadata, I think it was Maryanne, and then I think Heather was also talking about that as well with fuchsia and beige, you know, standardizing the data. So when you have people manually typing in product metadata, it takes time, it costs money. You might have people calling the same thing different names, or fat fingering some of the results. With our technology, we can process 100,000 images in 45 minutes and can extract all of the product metadata, sending it back so that the retailer can put it into their PIM and then use it to run their business. So just another use of computer vision. So computer vision, I suppose, is something that we see every day with lots of different departments. So from design to e-commerce to merchandising to data science to IP protection, there's lots of different uses for computer vision, but there's actually results to it as well. So in terms of conversion rates, or average order values, or, you know, reducing costs, there's huge uses for computer vision. And if people are looking to future-proof their business in retail, computer vision can be used right throughout the business. And we can see into the future. So sitting in Europe, we have a view into the future because we can see through our partners, particularly in China, in Korea and Japan, we can see the adoption of things like visual search. On the consumer side, we can also see the impact computer vision is having in those markets. So, you know, for a look into the future, we can just look to those markets and we can see what's coming in Europe, and computer vision is very much here to stay.
Excellent, Ross, thank you. Questions, let's start with the recurring one. Let's see how home working has affected you. I guess you're an international company anyway, so I guess you were doing quite a lot of this online stuff already.
Very much so, yeah. So our Singapore office has remained open, but with, you know, kind of reduced usage, and we've got people on a kind of a cycled basis. Like everyone else, you know, who's been asked the question, I'd say most people on the call, definitely, you know, I miss being in the office and working with people. We've been able to work very closely with our customers. We do a lot of work with retailers, but definitely nothing beats sitting down in a room with them with a whiteboard, figuring out their issues and trying to solve the problems. So yeah, there's very much friction in the process. Technology gets you some of the way there, but we're starting to reopen offices that have been closed over the last year.
Cool, thank you. Potentially controversial question from me. Do you think this sort of technology is, in the physical world, is taking the place of the informed sales assistant? Are we dumbing down the role of retail further?
Did you ask, is it taking the place of sales assistants?
Yeah. I mean, I guess historically I'm a big believer, or that a good sales assistant, increases sales dramatically. And I know that sales assistant has to be informed with knowledge and the ability to make things happen, to fulfill orders and demand, etc. But are you making a pitch that your technology complements that role or replaces that role?
I would say complements. I mean, certainly, to sit here in 2021, there's a lot of sometimes scaremongering about AI and, robots replacing us. But the reality is there's some things we do very well, and there's some things that our technology does not do well. And some of the things it does well are some of the grunt work, some of the, processing images and extracting data. It does that very well. The things it can't do well are the things that humans do very well in terms of, nuance. And if somebody comes in and they've got a picture of something or someone, so we've done work with retailers in arming the sales assistants with visual search, so that when people come in and they have a picture, the sales assistant is empowered by visual search. But it can't replace that human element to be able to pick up on not just what the customer is saying, but what they're not saying and their body language. And, maybe we'll be sitting here in 20 years' time and the technology will be able to, replace sales assistants, but we're a long, long way from that today. It's very much, it complements what retailers do rather than, and even with merchandising teams, some of our biggest fans are merchandising teams because we're not replacing them. We're actually making it easier for them to do their jobs.
Yeah, great. I think empowerment's the key word there. So thank you, Ross. Great, perfect. Now to our second technology speaker. I'm going to hand over to Chris Wood, who is the Global Sales Director for Proximity Insight.
There we are. Thank you, Martin. Sorry about that. I've had a new one on me from working from home. About 10 minutes ago, a fire engine turned up literally at the end of my driveway. So I think that's to do with the rain. So if you can see any blue lights reflecting or the sound of a pump, I do apologise. There we go. Right, so thank you for inviting me along to the webinar today. My name is Chris Wood. I work at Proximity Insight, and what we really care about is store associates, and what I'm here to talk about this afternoon is the new role of store associates. How has the experiences of the past 10, 11 months really changed what the role of store associates is going to be in the future? So I'll hopefully share a few views of interest there and present a few opportunities for retailers in terms of what your store associates might be doing in the near future if they're not already. So what's been covered a little bit, I for one can't wait to get back into shops, into shopping malls, to interact, but what sort of experience are we going to be walking into? And a few of the speakers today, Neil talked about increasing use of robotics at Halfords. Maryanne, you talked about sort of behind the scenes, a lot of the predictive analytics and recommendation that bots are making. And we know that robots are going to increase in terms of their presence in retail, whether that's behind the scenes in warehouses, whether it's doing stock checks, or indeed potentially being assistants in store in the future. But we hope that's not going to be the case. In fact, we're sure that it's not going to be, and humans and that human interaction is going to play a pivotal role, perhaps even more so in a post-COVID world. Doug Stevens is someone that I follow. He often has some quite interesting views on retail in the future, and he doesn't see what we've been through as an acceleration of digital in retail. He really believes that it's a completely new era of retail that we're going into. New norms, new customer behaviours, new competitive threats, and indeed what's already been touched upon is there'll be some winners, but unfortunately there will continue to be some losers in this new world. He's spoken quite a bit about Amazon and what they're doing and just the importance of data. But again, we feel that that human element of retail offers retailers a real differentiating capability that can be built upon. We know that more trade is shifting online. Again, the retail speakers have already touched upon that, and there's predictions that for many retailers we'll see 50% or more of trade shifting to online, and that really does force the question of what is the role of stores, what is the role of store associates. But whilst we look at these metrics, there's also a sort of growing body of evidence to suggest that more and more of these sales online are going to be influenced, indeed touched, by a store and a store associate in some way, shape or form, whether that's through experiential stores, whether it's stores acting more as sort of the final mile and click and collect hubs, or fulfill from store, or indeed the endless aisle type capabilities that many stores have today. So at Proximity, we really believe in this value of the human interaction in retail. We think, again, it's going to become even more important for many brands. And we see from our existing customers just how powerful this personal approach can be. So take the example of a store associate sending a one-to-one message to a customer, whether that's through email, SMS, WhatsApp, etc. We see vastly improved engagement rates than you would through traditional marketing automation. So 50 to 70% open rates, a 15% conversion rate. So for every 100 messages they're sending out, 15 of those will convert into an order, and those orders are bigger in size. We see on average 30% increase in average transaction value. And again, store associates can play a really important role helping to shift customers who traditionally have perhaps been single channel customers to becoming omni-channel customers. And we know that those omni-channel customers become more valuable over time than a single channel customer. So apologies, I know the video is probably a little bit glitchy for some of you on the webinar, but just to kind of give you a visual representation, really, in the past we've focused very much on that store interaction and providing the right information to the store associate when the customer is physically in the store, to be able to personalize that, to be able to upsell, cross-sell, but also capture information that then allows them to follow up with the customer after the customer's left the store. And really what we're focusing on is how do we continue to improve that in-store experience that keeps the customer coming back, but equally allow that personal experience to be extended across digital channels as well, whether that's virtual appointments, whether it's by sending very personalized curated edits to the customer or product recommendations. So just a little bit more about who we are as a company. We're a global company, but we're headquartered in London. And really we come from a passion for retail. Many of us have spent time in the retail industry. We've worked on the shop floor, and we have deep technical expertise as well. And bringing the two together really allows us to work well with our customers. We're very privileged to have a fantastic group of customers who continue to push us and help us improve our product and who we are as a company. And what we do is we bring a suite of capabilities and put that into the hands of a store associate. And what's really important there is it's all centered around that view of the customer. So unlocking some of the data that you have around your customers and putting it into the hands of a store associate, and then enabling them to use that in different stages of the customer journey, whether that's having appointments in store or virtually, whether it's if the customers come into the store and you've scanned a loyalty card, you're able to surface that information about the customer. You can see what they've bought previously, see recommendations. Again, some of those may come from AI, or they may actually be human recommendations of what that customer might be interested in. Different ways to interact. So we're seeing increased use of the ability for an online customer to connect directly to a store associate who's in store through live chat or live video. And equally as important, how to close that sale with some remote payment capability as well. So you know, whether if you're not physically in front of the customer, but you're able to build a basket of items that they're interested in, share that basket, or indeed have the customer check out securely without actually physically being in front of you. But we're seeing lots of these sort of being proliferated across retail now. and they'll continue to expand in their use. And really, we're bringing that together and making it easy for a store associate to access these sorts of capabilities in one place. We're seeing a few new channels emerge, which I'm sure some of you will have seen before, and we're anticipating that these will grow in their use. So firstly, the dark store concept. So these are actual physical stores with actual human retail associates working in those stores, but they're purely for serving the online customer. So leveraging some of that video calling capability, the ability to build baskets and share that with the customer, have the customer securely check out, and a slight extension to that as well, more virtual stores, which again may have actual human beings serving the customer, but in a virtual environment. We're expecting that to grow in 2021 and beyond. Probably most of us have had some sort of virtual service experience in the last 12 months, whether that's from virtual styling, beauty, home furnishings. There's a number of different interactions that traditionally may have taken place in a store environment that actually lend themselves very well to taking place in a virtual environment, and we'll continue to see retailers and other companies extend the use of these virtual services. And then thirdly, a really interesting one, we talked about, I think in Neil's slides, you talked about unemployment. You know, there's a lot of people out there who have selling skills, whether they've come from retail or other industries, and perhaps that have been made unemployed now because of COVID and the economy. And there's opportunities for them to use their skills in different ways, you know, selling to people that they know or people in their local community. And there's an opportunity for brands to tap into that and get closer to the end customer. So particularly for brands that are looking to build out their direct consumer business, we're starting to see this now with fashion brands, with beauty brands. They're looking to kind of build out this army of direct sellers or freelancers that are selling their products and getting closer to the customer. And that's a really interesting trend that I think, again, we'll see grow this year and beyond. So hopefully that was some interesting information, some use cases, some things that provoked a bit of thought about how that could work for your business. But fundamentally, what we believe is that combining human capabilities and empowering them with the right digital tools is going to be really key to retailers this year and beyond. And being able to have them connect with a customer, inspire that customer, nurture that customer relationship over time is going to be a key differentiator for many brands, and ultimately lead to those personal relationships, more loyalty, and indeed sell more or sell better that we'll see this year. So with that, happy to answer any questions, but thank you again for the opportunity to present to you this afternoon.
Excellent, thank you, Chris. Questions? There's one that came in just at the start of your speech, so I'm going to take that to you, then probably pass that back to Ross as well, from Daniel Rickle. Thanks, Dan. Are there areas where you think that customers will actually push back on retailers' technology if it's overused?
I think it's been used quite a bit, kind of cool versus creepy line. So at what point, you know, if we're talking about in the context of a store associate using data about a customer to personalize that interaction, I think it will be different for different brands, but at what point does it become either too overbearing or too much data, really? So we work with our customers to surface just the right amount of information to allow that interaction to be personalized without it being too creepy, and equally making sure that the associates are trained well to be able to use that information in a meaningful way. So I think, again, it'll be different for different brands. Maybe brands that have a younger customer base, they'll be sort of able to use more data in a particular way. But yeah, I guess this is kind of an emerging area in retail of store associates being empowered with this data, and I think we'll learn a lot more as we go on.
Yeah, and I think to your point about the customer age profile, I think it is a generational thing to a certain extent. My two children are 20, 22, and why wouldn't I share my data is their general attitude. They're happy with the concept that they're receiving targeted marketing based on their preference and their usage, and that's not an alien concept in its second nature. So I think we'll see more of that as well, from my opinion. Ross, do you can drop back in if you've got an opinion?
Yeah, I think great points there, Chris, and I think the to your point as well, Martin, it's not just generational. I'd say it's regional as well. In that we see, for example, I mentioned earlier the adoption of this technology, computer vision, in places like China, where there's a huge amount of facial recognition, at a governmental level, and people are very much, well, to a large part, kind of accepting of that, and kind of subsuming themselves within the greater good is very much more the norm. Certainly in Europe, some of the things that our customers in China and the Far East are looking to us to do around face recognition, no retailers in Europe would ever ask us to do anything like that. So I think it is dependent. And Chris, your point about cool becoming creepy, I think, yeah, very much, we have to be careful of that. Yeah, it's a good question. And there is a fine line that you have to walk.
And I think I'd just add to that as well, that the stores, although their role is changing, the stores still have to add some sort of value. If we digitize everything in the store experience that you get online, what's the store for? So we have to be picking up on the words we talked about earlier, empowerment of those in the store, and offering something over and above what they can get on the online world. So technology for technology's sake isn't always the answer, but it can be the problem. I think it's quite well on that one. Perfect. Great. So that's thanks to our two technology partners. To wrap up the session today, I'm now really pleased to introduce Dr. Esther Pugh. Esther has an extensive career in retail, working at a senior management level for 25 years, and is now a lecturer at Leeds Beckett University, covering fashion, retail, visual merchandising, and marketing. So most things, Esther. So Esther, over to you, and thanks for joining.
Thanks very much, Martin, and thanks for inviting me. So my presentation doesn't involve any slides. It's more of a podcast, if you like. You can close your eyes if you want and just listen to my voice. Perhaps it will send you to sleep. I hope not. So the title of my presentation is The Changing Rhythms of Retail and the Musicality of Shopping. As Martin said, my name is Dr. Esther Pugh, and I'm a senior lecturer at Leeds Business School at Leeds Beckett University. I'm really delighted to be here, and thanks so much to Bex for inviting me from Retail247 to talk for about 10 to 15 minutes about my passion, which is retail. Maryanne will be pleased to see that I'm wearing a beaded Monsoon dress and an accessorised headband. I believe in wearing party wear, even when working from home. I've thoroughly enjoyed all of these sessions today and listened very carefully, and they've really inspired me. As a retail romantic, I'm excited and optimistic about the future of retail. And all of these presentations have shown me what an innovative and resourceful sector this is. And it can emerge from challenging times stronger and more resilient. Retail isn't dead, boring retail is dead, as retailer Rania Masri said. So for many years, I spent at Oasis and Coast as a visual merchandiser, responsible for creating stimulating store experiences across the global portfolio, including windows and in-store. I'm now teaching undergraduate and postgraduate students about retail and consumer behaviour, and I've written my PhD on the retail experience in the context of vintage fashion. What interests me most is the production of space. So Henri Lefebvre, a French philosopher, who I've enjoyed immensely exploring the concepts and the theories behind space, how we as individuals impact upon it and how it influences us. As someone who spent years designing physical stores and positioning products and services in them, in order to encourage customers to enter the store, to dwell in the store, to feel good, to spend and develop loyalty to the brand, investigating consumer behaviour in digital spaces is a thrilling prospect. In digital space, the shopper is empowered. Retailers can arrange these complex spaces to facilitate really rewarding experience in combination with the physical spaces. Inspired by Mohammed 2020, who likened the shopping centre to a waltz, and Mulicek and Osman 2017, who examined the rhythms of the urban landscape, I'm currently working on a paper about the rhythms of retailing and the musicality of shopping. This analyses the fundamental concepts of the experience and the consumer, and the consumer decision-making process, one of those fundamental things at the heart of all shopping, and how digital is changing them. What opportunities do these developments offer pure play and omnichannel, retailers to create delightful and exhilarating experiences in the future? The retail experience can be likened to music, and the most successful brands are those who create a beautiful musical composition which resonates with their customers, with sounds, with vibrations and silent moments. Across the consumer decision-making process, there's a musical metaphor. Music can be used to convey a whole range of experiences, environments, and emotions. And this is what contemporary retailers should do. The way that shoppers move to and fro in your spaces is rhythmical, like music. Retailers should be orchestrating the experience across a range of touch points, stimulating behavioural and psychological outcomes, so their customers not only hear, but feel the music of their brand. Today is just some of my initial thoughts and musings on this paper. I hope some of the things inspire you, maybe make you think. This is all inspired at the moment by secondary research, but I will be embarking on my own primary research. Retail reflects life, and life has changed, as has been mentioned. COVID-19 has affected the rhythms of life. Structures have dissipated, solidity has turned into liquidity, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity have dominated the retail environment for some time, and these have been accentuated, not accelerated, by the pandemic. The linearity of traditional shopping experiences has been replaced by dynamic, simultaneous, interspersed, discontinuous shopping in fits and starts, unpredictable but exciting and disruptive. A bit like the hokey-cokey of the retail openings and closings in 2020, even in those 24/7 online retail spaces, consumers are fickle. They have attention deficit shopping disorder. Digital strategic communications, like music, can make them sit up and listen if the melody enchants them. This is about technology, it's about digital change, and technology has had a $62 trillion impact on the global economy, no sector more so than in retail. It's affected human interactions with each other and with the retailers. There's more touch points, there's more ways to make contact with brands at all stages of the decision-making journey, on different platforms and devices, and customers travel across many different platforms and devices in one transaction often. Digital opens up new spatial opportunities. We're not limited anymore to our own hometown and those shops there. We've got the ability to find and discover many new exciting brands. That's exactly what I've been doing during lockdown. I've found some amazing brands that have really resonated with me. And then I've shared them with all my friends on social media through my own content, photographs and video. Customers are becoming more risk-taking, there's evidence to show from Mintel. Over 60% of customers have switched brands and found new brands in 2020. We're willing to take more risks and we're willing to experiment more. So we've mentioned the decision-making process. This is where the experience takes place. It's one of those core retail concepts. It's the past, present, and future of shopping, pre, during, and post-purchase. It involves decision-making, rational, cognitive decision-making, also emotional decision-making. Pre-purchase, It occurs across many more touch points, platforms and devices. It occurs simultaneously with our daily tasks and activities. We're shopping in the bath, we're shopping while we're cooking our dinner. In different spaces and places, but mostly in our own domestic space at the moment in lockdown. Browsing, evaluating, reading about the brand story, virtual styling are all things that take place in that pre-purchase stage. During purchase, at checkout, where we expect more payment options, our basket to be saved, different delivery options and faster and more choices, faster response to questions and queries, real-time communication and returns information. And then what I find the most interesting, the post-purchase stage, the excited and lingering period of time between ordering. Even that has its own touch points and communications from the brand. Waiting for the parcel, I just find that a wonderful lingering moment, or a few moments or a few days, as quickly as possible, hopefully. The ceremonious unboxing of the parcel, which is often recorded on YouTube in videos when it's very, very exciting. The packaging, the labeling, the messaging can all create wow when we get that parcel. Also post-purchase, the reviews, the testimonials, the social sharing, the user-generated content, which is stimulated by a great experience. Customers now want more than ever to engage in conversations, to stop and get to know you, to talk to real people in the brand, to hear those real people's stories. They want to be nurtured by brands and valued at all stages, pre, during and post. And another aspect that's interesting is the consumer decision-making process now travels through different spaces. The digital shopper, although on a device logged into a virtual space, decides whether to buy in her own domestic space, where she's relaxed, uninhibited, maybe has other accessories to hand if we're talking about fashion, to compare the items to, and to think about purchase. So that can be quite a slow process rather than the pressure of being in a store. When the product lands on the doorstep, she decides whether to keep it in her own physical environment. So that first impression that usually takes place in a store is now taking place on the doorstep. And this is a huge opportunity for retailers, using that moment to create loyalty. Because in some cases, the return rates are 3 times higher in digital commerce than they are in stores. So think of those YouTube unboxing videos, consumers sharing their very own first tactile physical experiences with their friends on social media. That is a huge branding opportunity. It's something that I've only done for the first time in lockdown. Lucy and Yak dungarees, snag types, and who gives a crap toilet paper, that's a good one. All of these wonderful experiences when you get the parcel, and quite a conversation point with the postman or the UPS man. It's multi-sensory, similar to the stores that as a visual merchandiser I was responsible for creating. So it's potential for excitement, for trust, for joy, but also for letdown and frustration or disappointment. Sometimes it goes back to the stores if we're not happy with it, but this is a really big opportunity. That's something else that really interests me. Perhaps that's another paper. I've got a whole list of papers that I want to write. So we as customers have higher expectations and we've become more empowered. We want targeted, efficient and responsive experiences. We want seamless interaction between the physical and the online spaces we move between. Due to technology, the customer journey has fragmented and become less linear and more dynamic. It's liquid and it's constantly changing. It loops backwards and forwards through the pre, during and post stages. Consumers jump from one stage to another on this path. In a different way than they would have in the traditional shopping in stores. For instance, from pre to post purchase, by reading reviews before they check out, by checking delivery times before they make that purchase, from the payment and back into the store. They nip between physical and back to mobile. Sometimes the journey slows down, taking time for browsing and treasure hunting during that bath maybe, and sometimes it speeds up when we're impatient and we want quick delivery. It has fast and slow rhythms like music. Retail brands can alter this flow, tempo, beat, duration, pulse of the music. They're entering our spaces now. The consumers aren't entering theirs. We're not going to the shops, but we're shopping constantly, 24/7, martini commerce. Improving the experience across all the touch points is a key objective for retail. That word experience is used a lot. What does it actually mean? There's a lot of debate around this. Pine and Gilmore, 1999, came up originally with that concept of the experience economy and said that retailers now are staging experiences rather than selling things. So the transition from tangible goods to intangible services, the way things are delivered is how the value is added, more important than the things themselves. I don't agree with actually what I read in Mintel this week, that coronavirus has slipped us back into focusing more on just selling things and not the experiences. Because even though we're not going to the shops, the shop can come to us, and the experience of digital shopping must be great. According to the dictionary, experience is something that leaves an impression, something that we have practical contact with. Academic definitions include concepts like perception, acknowledgement, stimulation, motivation, participation, enrichment, and value. How we get all these things to occur must be delivered in your own brand tone of voice and really relate to your overall business purpose and your customer. So we've discovered that consumer behaviour is changing, and this change is being hastened by COVID-19. Digital commerce is being boosted by the lockdown. The experience across the many touch points should be composed like music with your shopper in mind. But in this VUCA world, this is an unfinished symphony, and it should be rearranged often to mirror the syncopation of people's lives. Thank you for listening. My name's Dr. Esther Pugh then. I hope you've got some questions for me, and please keep in touch. I'm going to be continuing these conversations on LinkedIn. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks, Esther. Some great insights and metaphors there. Perhaps if all our panelists pop back up at some point now as well. But a couple of questions for you, Esther. There's a couple on the screen. How can the digital space complement physical space and vice versa? And who does it well?
Yeah, so there's some great retailers that I've discovered during the lockdown that do this really, really well. Lush is one retailer who is very good at this, and they can create that same experience across those different channels. So even though we haven't got that smell, that sense of smell we can't get online, it's about communicating that. And Lush are very good at getting that experience you get when you go into the store with that, well, I call it a wonderful smell. I know everyone doesn't do that. The wonderful scent of those stores almost comes through, and you do get that sense of discovery on Lush's website as well. Yeah, so they do it really well. So it's about thinking, what is the essence of our experience, and how can we deliver that in stores as well as on our social channels and our website? That's one of my colleagues, Alistair, is asking me these questions to catch me out, you know.
Well, actually, that was Alistair. Yes, thanks, Alistair. Anybody else got any comment on that? Heather, Maryanne, from a retail perspective? Don't worry if not.
Still on, still on mute.
We got away with the last hour and 45 minutes without saying.
Yeah, I had to be the first one there, didn't I? Yeah, I think if you do look at the Selfridges, you know, obviously I'm going to say that because I was ex-Selfridges, but if you look at their theatre of the store, that's very much what they want to try and achieve with online. And I think listening to what Esther said is really interesting, and you know, to try and get that same feel, because literally, as you mentioned, I've gone onto the Lush website, and you're right, you can almost smell it. How do you make that the same across you
So we need to know from our technology experts when we're going to have that technology to smell the computer.
Yeah.
Optional
but
feature.
yeah, but I think the store experience has to be so wonderful as well, not just going into a store. I think that theatre is incredibly important, because you can buy anything online. If I want, you know, a designer jacket, or I want a luxury beauty product, I can get it online. Why go to a store? You've got to give it something else as well.
That's right, exactly, yeah.
Perfect. A couple of questions from the audience. So a long one, Kevin O'Brien. There is no doubt there has been a paradigm shift to digital. My only surprise over 2020 is the realization how far behind some retailers are, and to survive are going digital probably faster than they have the capability. My expectation is that a number of newbies to digital will have to take stock. Have we made money? How much margin? What is the impact on operational change, supply chain? Who is our customer, existing and new? Any comment on that? I think that's, yeah. There's been a lot of retailers that have been forced to play the catch-up game, basically, haven't they? And I think technology has stepped up to the challenge in a lot of cases, but obviously we've seen, you know, some how do you call it, some of the boring retailers fall by the wayside as well.
But you also see Primark refusing to go digital. They have said they have no intention of going digital, and that's extraordinary when you think of what they've lost in the during the pandemic. But I think there are some who are saying, no, this is not our place. We are going to be bricks and mortar. But it'll be interesting to see what the future holds.
I think it'll be very difficult to keep that opinion for a long time when into the future. Yeah.
Excellent. Kevin Breeze, there is an element of customers with e-com fatigue. And then, although I think Amazon knocks on my door daily, and the need to see humans serve with personal choices, etc. How do you think we win without having tablets, screens and tech being in our faces?
Well, this is where we need to introduce that human touch. And yeah, we don't want to be communicating all the time with robots and artificial intelligence. We do need that human connection online. So we are seeing things like virtual styling and communication with real human beings in real time. And I think that's so important. And then you lose yourself and you don't realize you're on the tablet and you're shopping and you're buying more things. You're just lost in the moment.
Perfect. How are we doing for time? We're just about on our time marker. I'm going to finish with one question from me, Esther, because I picked up on your the creation of loyalty on the doorstep.
Oh, yes.
Obviously, we're all still tied to the bloke in the white van delivering the package. Yeah. That's the eternal problem. Is there anything we can do about that bit?
Well, this is such a simple solution for any retail business, isn't it? And it's not at a great cost, because some of those brands I was mentioning, the Lucene Yak, the Snag Tights, the packages when you get them are absolutely spectacular. And sometimes it's the unboxing, sometimes it's just the unwrapping of that recycled paper in loads of different colours. And so I bought several pairs of tights and tipped them out onto the floor, and each one had an individual sticky label on it, was in coloured paper. It was absolutely beautiful. But at the same time, I won't mention the name of the brand, I bought a Christmas present from a very expensive designer brand, and it arrived in a plastic bag. And that was very disappointing. So I think this is a really easy, quick win for retailers. And I've just noticed during the lockdown how important that is, the waiting for the parcel, you get the notifications through, it's on its way to you, and those are often in that brand tone of voice, and can be very, very personalized. So I think this is really, really important.
It's a difficult, I agree, it's a difficult one. It depends on the retailer. We had a lot of debate at Harvey Nichols when we launched online.
Yeah.
You're adding things that are great, but you're also adding cost to the exercise. And at the same time, you've got an ever decreasing margin because of the pressures of etc. So ultimately,
take on it where we've all kind of forgotten about the environmental piece. Like it is beautiful to have things come in a lovely box, but in reality, you're going to take it out of the box and hang it in a wardrobe.
Yeah.
So you're completely right that there is the case of you know, it's trying to balance that. We like it to come so that you open it and have that lovely experience. And actually, there was the Amazon guy ringing on my doorbell, Martin. So there we are. We all have it. And I think there are brands, you know, Amazon, you don't expect to be fancy. It's going to come in a brown box and you're going to fling it on the side because you're not buying anything expensive. So there is that. There absolutely is that. But I do think we all have to, the world, you know, because obviously things sort of seem to fall in out of fashion, so to speak. Obviously, environment is not fashion, but you know, a couple of years ago, it was a massive, that was it, pre-pandemic, that was it. That's all everybody was talking about. Environment, how can we all be recycling? Everybody pull their packaging out, only send things in a plastic bag, because you don't need to send it in a box with tissue paper and a ribbon.
Yeah.
And, you know,
well, perhaps the name of those videos needs to move on now. It's not so much unboxing, because I'm talking about very simple, just really quite thin paper wrapping things.
Yeah.
It was just the fact they had a sticker. So yes, I think the environmental aspect is really important, because that can be disappointing, can't it, then, when you see all of that. But yeah, and also some of those boxes, though, I actually reuse them and recycle them.
well, you're very good, but a lot of people don't, and sadly that ends up as landfill.
Yeah.
Great. Well, on that note, I think we've run out of time. That's perfect. So that concludes our webinar today. I hope you found it interesting and thought-provoking. A big thank you to all for attending, and a special thank you to our speakers, Maryanne, Neil, Heather, Ross, Chris and Esther. All of today's sessions should hopefully be available on YouTube, and please feel free to contact me or the panelists directly with any follow-up questions. It just remains for me to say, I hope you all have a great 2021, and thank you again for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Guys, bye-bye.
Bye.